What is cmath function? The cmath is a header file as well as a standard library in C++ that provides mathematical function. What are the functions of cmath? The absolute function. It is used to get absolute value of number. The inverse cosine function. It is used to compute the inverse cosine of number. It returns the angle in radians. The inverse hyperbolic cosine function. It is used to compute inverse hyperbolic cosine. The inverse sine function. It is used to compute the inverse sine of number. It returns the angle in radians. The inverse hyperbolic sine function. It is used to compute the inverse hyperbolic sine. The inverse tangent function. It is used to compute the inverse tangent or arctangent of number. The second inverse tangent function. It is used to compute the angle in radians of point x and y from positive x-axis and the point x and y. The inverse hyperbolic tangent function. It is used to compute the inverse hyperbolic tangent. The cube root function. It is used to compute the cube root of number. The ceiling function. It is used to return the value of x rounded up to its nearest integer. The copy sign function. It is used to return the value with magnitude of x and sine of y. The cosine function. It is used to compute the cosine of an angle. It returns x in radians. The hyperbolic cosine function. It is used to compute the hyperbolic cosine of number. The exponential function. It returns the value of e raised to the power x. The base 2 exponential function. It returns 2 raised to the power x. The exponential m1 function. It computes e raised to power x minus 1 with high precision for values of x close to 0. The error function. It is used to compute error function. The complementary error function. It gives complementary error function at x. The absolute floating number function. It is used to return absolute value of floating point number. The fdim function. It returns the positive difference between two numbers x and y. The floor function. It returns the largest integer value less than or equal to x. The fused multiply add function. It computes the fused multiply and add operation in a single step with only one final rounding. The maximum value function. It returns the highest value of floating x and y. The minimum value function. It returns the lowest value of floating x and y. The fmod function. It returns the floating point remainder of x and y. The breakdown floating point function. A floating point number x into a normalized fraction m mantissa and an integer exponent n base 2. The right triangle function. It computes the length of the hypotenuse of a right-angled triangle using the Pythagorean theorem. The I log b function. It returns integer to the floating point base logarithm of x. The id exponential function. A floating point number from a mantissa and exponent base 2. Gamma function. It returns logarithm of the absolute value of gamma function at x. The Lorentz function. It is used to rounds a floating point number to nearest integer and returns it as long integer. The round function. It rounds x to the nearest integer and returns the result as long integer. The log function. It returns the natural log of x. The base 10 logarithm function. It returns the base 10 logarithm of x. The log1p function. It returns the natural logarithm of x plus 1. The log_b function. It returns the floating point base logarithm of absolute value of x. The lrint function. It returns the round x to nearby integer and returns the result as long integer. The lround function. It rounds x to the nearest integer and returns the result as a long integer. The mod_f function. It returns the decimal part of x and writes the integer part to the memory at pointer y. It splits a floating point number into its integer part and fractional part. The nan function. It returns a nan, not a number value. The nearby integer function. It returns x rounded to nearby integer. The next after function. It returns the closest floating point number to x in the direction of y. The next toward function. It returns the closest floating point number to x in the direction of y but with higher precision for y. The pow function. It returns the value of x to the power y. The remainder function. It returns the remainder of x divide y and rounded to the nearest integer. The remquo function. It returns x divide y and rounded to the nearest integer and store result in the memory of pointer z. The rint function. It rounds a floating point number to the nearest integer according to the current rounding mode. The scalblun function. It returns long integer x multiply r raised to power y and r is usually 2. The scalbn function. It returns integer x multiply r raised to power y and r is usually 2. The sin function. It is used to compute the value of sine of x. It returns x in radians. The hyperbolic sine function. It returns the hyperbolic sine of x. The square root function. It returns the square root of x. The tangent function. It is used to compute the tangent of x and it returns x in radians. The hyperbolic tangent function. It returns the hyperbolic tangent of x. The t-gamma function. It returns the value of the gamma function at x. The trunc function. It is used to removes the decimal part of a number and keeps integer part. The log2 function. It is used to compute the base 2 logarithm of a number. The round function. It is used to round a number to the nearest integer value. Kindly watch the video to learn how to use all cmath functions in programming. It will help you fully understand the syntax and how each function works. The link is provided in the description.